Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outlawed Thoughts, episode 40. We're at a nice round number. It would be 41 if not for that episode that got removed, but is what it is. That is the lost episode. But we are here with Kareem Mays, one of the co-hosts here over at Outlawed Thoughts, and Jacob from Rise to Liberty. And we're going to cover some news story and some random shit that I found on Twitter and other places, as per usual. I had a great conversation yesterday with Meme Copium, great YouTuber guy. If you guys go check that episode out, I think it's like up to like the third most viewed episode on the channel, so that was pretty cool. And then hopefully I'm gonna go on his drinking stream or some kind of show here soon, which should be chaotic. Yeah. But it was awesome. That was a good interview. And then we had the Kurt Walker Jr. interview too in this last month. We've been doing some good interviews on the show recently. I'm trying to do like at least one or two good interviews a month, and then do these kind of other, more just news heavy shows and kind of talk style shows. So I think it's been working out good. We'll have more shorter content and stuff like that up on the channel here soon. And my hair is retarded today. Okay. I haven't been able to get my hair to straighten all day, and I'm like, you fucking. So we have a bunch of different random stories to cover today. I kind of wanted to go through the Twitter files. I hadn't really done them on the show yet, and I have that loaded up, and because I have some articles that pertain to that. I've got Tim Pool getting swatted and raided and stuff. We'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, I like what he said.
Yeah, I like what he said, but I do want to get into kind of the background of it. I think a lot of this stuff is shady as shit.
It is.
So first off, actually, you know what? Let's cover the Tim Pool thing first, because we could talk about this now. So I've got the tweets here, so we'll bring that up. But thick and thin of it is here. It started with Tim Pool, December 5th, just got word that the crew broke into one of our properties. They are lucky to be alive. After nearly being struck by a 9mm, they panicked and dropped their belongings and fled the property. Please stay the fuck away from my buildings. This is West Virginia, and you will get hurt. WV, that's West Virginia, right? I'm not retarded.
Correct.
No.
Okay. I mean, just holy shit. You have to be insane to break into a West Virginia house. Not only do we have guns, but we have like really big ones. Could you image breaking into a house and there's some right-wing nut job with a Barrett M81A pointed at you yelling yeehaw? No one got hurt. Police are on the scene now. Oh my god. Chat A1 might as well be saying DeSantis 2024. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is the first one, right? Then the next day, there's a 9mm bullet lodged in my kitchen now. I can't say I'm surprised this happened after the wave of doxing and threats made against us. Okay. Got swatted again. Law enforcement doesn't exist in this country anymore. Private security or nothing. So this is like? Follow-up day. Gets swatted again. Now, I want to address some things. I've talked about this once before on the podcast. When Tim Pool was in the scourge of swattings that happened a little while ago. And I made a prediction, which is that these swattings were not coming from the leftist trolls that everybody was assuming. It was not coming from some foreign entity or political entity that opposed Tim Pool to that degree, but rather back then it was coming from America first. And there's a lot of people on forums and on the internet that are not left-wing that believe this. And I've come to the conclusion that I think many of those people are correct.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, and why?
So starting out with the stuff that happened back when Tim Pool was getting swatted a bunch, way back then when that first started, everybody assumed it started because of this whole Marjorie Taylor Greene thing and him having Marjorie Taylor Greene on. That was never the case. The swatting started specifically because Jack Murphy was outed on Tim Pool's show as being a massive cuck. And the America First crew was the loudest voice on the internet attacking him through his chat and everything. Well, then when Tim Pool reacted by not talking about it, that chat and everybody on Reddit and on Kiwi Farms and on all these different forums, 4chan and stuff like that, just continuously kept getting more and more pissed at Tim. They weren't mad about they weren't angry about Jack Murphy anymore. They were just
Elijah Schaffer fans.
Exactly. Yeah, they were pissed that I'm not even joking. Like, yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, I was in those Telegram groups.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And so I believe it is that cohesive group that was actually attacking him and doxing him and doing that stuff. That stuff started before Marjorie Taylor Greene ever went on the show. He deflected by blaming that stuff on the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing because he didn't want to publicly admit that it was the right who was most likely fucking doing the shit to him and not the left. Right. It would kill his base. So he just didn't say anything. And now what happens? Kanye comes on a show. There's a big blow up. Fuentes leaves. There's this whole thing. And now he's being doxxed and the whole thing starts over again. I mean, to me, that looks pretty obvious. And sure, I don't think the mainstream will ever say that. Like even the YouTube mainstream, because I don't think that they want to get on the bad side of those people, but bringing them in Alaska.
Kind of slightly different interpretation of what I've seen, but yeah, that could be possible.
Listen, it's just as possible some leftist cell of some group is doing this or some random. I don't think it's a
leftist cell. Well, here's what happened. And I do like Tim Pool's show. I watch Tim Pool. It depends on his guest, though, how much I'll watch. Like, if it's my boy Brian Nichols or maybe it's Angela, or if it's Dave Smith, I'm going to watch. Probably consider, or Scott Horton, I'll watch more.
Yeah, it's almost wholly based on his guests now for me, too.
But from what I heard, went down, Krigler, if you looked at that, who's like this model skateboarder dude who's real good friends with Tim, said, hey, here's what happened.
I watched Krigler.
Yeah. And Krigler said this whole issue happened. And I guess like Tim's brother was bragging, like, I'm a real good hacker. I can hack into anything. I could do whatever I want. I don't know what his relationship to his brother is. That's where I was thinking some of that.
So my understanding is that they've been on good terms now for a while and that Tim's brother is working behind the scenes with Tim. So the idea that his brother was the one doing it, I don't think works. It's too much work. Like, this isn't one person. This is a whole Discord chat or a whole Telegram group of people who are orchestrating this stuff. They're using VPNs with pass-through numbers so that they can call these police stations and know they won't get caught. And one of the few groups of people, unless you believe it's some radical leftist group, which I don't, because they have much better targets and much better reason to be going after them. All that Tim's getting out of this is more publicity. So
literally saying, "Oh, it's the left. The left is so mad about Marjorie Taylor Greene."
They're not that stupid. They're not. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot on purpose.
So could he be
orchestrating it himself?
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Doing it to.
And back when they first started, I theorized about that because he was getting so much attention out of it. I mean, every fucking drama YouTuber is making a video about it, which is stirring up a bunch of attention towards his channel.
But here's one interesting thing I'll point out. Who's one of his guests? I don't know what you think of this YouTuber. Sometimes I think he's funny on his social commentary, but I don't like his police. Like, I swear to God, it could be a cop could come out and like shoot a toddler, and then Brandon Tatum's like, well, here's a police protocol. Sometimes they get scared, and he did the right thing though.
Well, it's sort of like the argument that I've seen this now twice. I don't know if you saw I think it was Texas. There was a shooting over in Texas where a kid was like eating a cheeseburger in a parking lot, and the cop just opened the door and blasted him. Like,
Tatum's like, well,
the cop got charged with 2 counts of attempted murder because the way that it worked out was there was a passenger in the car also got struck. The kid was in critical condition. I think he's actually stable now, which is good news. But the cop, like the chief in whatever Texas town it happened in, I think it was Houston or Dallas, one of the two,
Same shit.
was like, yeah, fuck this cop. Like, he's done. This wasn't our training. This has nothing to do with us. Like, just cut it off and do it. And I still saw cops on Twitter and ex-cops on Twitter defending the cop's actions, being
What
like,
was it?
well,
Was
he
it-
thought there was a stolen car from the day before.
It's that brainwashing that's just so deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. Like, some conservatives, I'll agree on the social commentary, but like when I just guarantee, almost like there was a guy from Arizona, I can't remember his name, Crash Bandicoot and cooking chili, and then the cops just like, oh, knocked on his door, and then and Tatum's like, well, you know, and I'm like, dude, just stop, like. And that was a funny thing when they got swatted. Tatum's like, well, sometimes there's bad circumstances and you got to just run in and do it. And I'm like, but then if you accept that, then then there's no Fourth Amendment anymore. You might as well just throw the Fourth Amendment out and just say, hey, it looks scary, so we're going to search you. We don't. So he just kept saying, like, well, there's exogenic. I think that's the word he used, exogenic circumstances. So it's just like, okay.
So this was a North Philly owner says he's had enough violent crime at his gas station. So he's hired these guys to protect his customers in stores. He's got full-blown, like, fuck around and find out police.
Dude, that's fucking rad.
Look at those short barrel 9mm or 40s. Fucking dope. These guys are ready to rock.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck it, why not?
Dude, I mean, depending on how, again, if you've got successful stations, depending on the cost, fuck yeah.
6:30. 6:30.
Well, I mean, hey, this is a response. This isn't like a...
No, exactly, yeah. Well, especially with, I've heard, like, people stealing gas out of the, like, you know, storage vats and stuff out of these places, too. So you end up with this situation where, yeah, you kind of have to straight up protect your shit.
I mean, somebody dressed like that, I'll tell you, I'm not worried.
Yeah, like, no, I'm not going in there to try to fucking steal shit if there's a guy standing there with a long gun.
No, definitely not. Well, and just as like a normal patron, that doesn't make me nervous. It would probably make me more nervous being in that type of a neighborhood. Like, once I leave there, I'm like, oh shit, I don't have those guys to protect me anymore.
Yeah. You can ask them also, if they're down the boot.
Wall Street Silver, pretty big YouTube channel and Twitter account, like, just tweeted out a bunch of clips of Dave Smith and stuff yesterday. That was pretty cool. I don't know if you guys saw that. Somebody mentioned it to me on Twitter. And then cool. The other thing was, a lot of people, I don't know on our side have seen this, but Stitch and Adam have had Dave Smith on twice now, and I think a lot of our people just missed that it existed. But if people go and listen to that, listen to the first one they did like a few weeks ago first, because Stitch and Adam make themselves look like real idiots, and it's pretty fucking hilarious. It was one of the funniest, like, 40 minutes of a show I've watched in a long time. I'm looking for a tweet that I had been looking for, but I'm having a problem finding it, so we might have to just move on. I was going to read that Big Long Joe Vogler article maybe on the show today if people want to hear it.
I'd be down to just I saw cops were enforcing more police stuff, fun stuff. They enforced a lockdown order from 2 years ago on a restaurant. I cannot remember.
Saw that.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, 2 years later, just, are you serious? Like, who? I mean, that's kind of scary. That's like something like you forget about. Like, oh, you had a parking ticket from 5 years ago. It's like, yeah, you're under arrest. I'm like, are you serious? Like, at that point, I'm like, all right, we're fighting.
Yeah.
Someone's going down. It ain't gonna be me. But that's, to me, absolutely insane that you have that memory. I don't even remember, like, sometimes, like, what I had, you know, what day it is. Like, people are like, oh, they're like, oh, it's Christmas time. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I kind of related to that. Did you guys go through the DARE program?
I know. I missed all that stuff. I've gone through a lot of the old videos and like training stuff, which is hilarious.
So there was this interesting part of the DARE program that I was just reminded of the other day. I completely forgot about this, but there was at one point, and I don't know if they did this all years, but they did it definitely when my class and surrounding classes went through it, that the local police station actually like took the fingerprints of the children that went through it at the elementary under the guise of like if you got kidnapped or something. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's a semi-legitimate excuse, I guess, but really, like, you're putting it on record, like that's all that is. And so, hearing some police station is like, oh yeah, you did this so many years ago, we've had your records on file since you were like 5, so go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that is insane to me that
they're
keeping track of stuff. Like, your record's supposed to get expunged when you're 18. That's why people make the joke, oh yeah, if you're gonna fight like he's 18, like, okay. To me, it's ridiculous that they're doing this. It's just part of what I see as like the greater reset. Like, we're going to keep all the records of everything you did. We're going to keep an ESG score on you. We're going to keep a social credit thing. Honestly, at this point, I'm willing to say, if you're going to go hardcore by the Second Amendment, it says to piss off the right now. The left gets mad about, shall not be infringed, which I love. I think you can piss off the right with the Second Amendment. It says a well-regulated militia being essential. It doesn't say local police stations. It doesn't say military. It says a well-regulated militia. What's the difference? Is that a militia means we all get in a Discord server, and I guess that's how Minutemen would work now. To me, if you don't like Discord, you could do Keybase, you could do another thing, so don't get hung up on that. And you say, are you down to boog? Or there's an emergency going on. And then you grab your gun, I grab.
I want to make sure when you do that, there's at least 15 feds in that chat. At least 15.
I don't see tons of feds on Discord. I hope they're not.
Oh, you have no fucking idea, man. that entire application is a trans furry fed farm. That's all Discord is. This is a bunch of trans people, feds, and furries. It's the TFF.
Here's my
new alphabet agency.
Yeah, TFF. Oh my God, sounds like a weird internet protocol.
The CEO of Twitter, the CEO of Discord, will eventually become an actual triple threat, a trans furry fed. They are all 3 of them.
But yeah, that's the idea, is that a well-regulated militia and then private security outside of the Constitution makes sense. And that's really the only thing that, to me,
it's anything the private militia wouldn't be able to handle through whatever training.
So we're gonna go through the 2 main stories I have for tonight are the Twitter files thread, which I think I'm just going to read through the entire thing and we'll talk as we go. And then I've got this big Joe Vogler article that was written by somebody who I'm hopefully going to try to get on the show. But I'm slowly making a documentary and writing a book about Joe's kind of life and his whole story here in Alaska. And the documentary will definitely come out first because that's a lot easier for me to make because I have experience editing and things like that. I don't have experience writing a book. So that's already kind of started with the kind of collection process of getting everything together. And now I just have to sit down and start getting pages down. But my goal is for it to be right in that kind of... I don't want it to be very long. I'm looking at like the 7,500 page mark. Mainly because I want it to be something people actually fucking read. And I think these 300 page books, like
people don't read them, unfortunately. I mean,
there's a reason why it was easy for me to get attached to libertarian things when I read Anatomy of the State is because it was short, it was easy.
Road to
Vogler's
Serfdom.
life, unfortunately, there's not a ton of detail about it because before he came to Alaska, a lot of his Kansas days and things like that are kind of in the mystery of things. You don't really know details, so that stuff has to come from the possibility of me getting a hold of old family and stuff like that, which is what I've been kind of working on, which has been the hardest part of getting everything ready to write and get together, because I didn't want to just make a documentary that's just the same thing as City Confidential or the stuff that was already done on the topic. And I didn't want to write a book if I wasn't doing it off of kind of a two-pronged situation where it does part of it is his political beliefs and part of it is his actual life story, which is, I think, an easier way to do it.
Speaking of documentaries, there's one out about something happening quite suddenly.
Died suddenly?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that documentary is trash. Now I don't think it's I don't necessarily think it's wrong. It could very well be right, but I don't know who the fuck made it or what their deal was. But that is, it's just like
it's pretty good.
I heard Robert Malone speak about it because apparently he had seen it, and I'm pretty much just going to go with what he says just because he would know better. But he gave it saying that it's not incorrect, but we should also just be careful with like lobbing conclusions.
Well, the entire, so for instance, like one of the irritating things they do in it is like the editing style in it. They show this Bill Gates speech, and then they hard cut right after he ends a specific sentence, and they go into criticizing the fact that he said it, and that's like 5 minutes of the documentary. Well, I happen to have seen that clip 1,000 times, and so I know that they purposely cut it off where they did, so that they didn't hear the follow-up sentence after it that nullified the entire 5 minutes of that documentary that they just did. It was a lot of them needing to fill time, because really all they could have done that entire documentary in 15 minutes with the one guy that was the only one that actually did anything with a body. It would have taken 15 minutes. It could have been on YouTube. It could have been on Rumble. It could have been on all these platforms and not have gotten them banned. And instead they wanted to drive everybody to it, by playing up on the fact that this is dangerous for us to put out there, when in all actuality, they're not drawing anything real, because none of what they're using in the documentary can be like replicated in the way that they're saying it can be. You don't know that anyway. They're not publishing any documents with this. They're not putting out, here's our medical syllabus that we've done on these fibrous clots.
I don't think you need to. Yeah, they're still researching it. I thought it was really good, because here's the thing.
I think it's good because it's the first one of these that'll be made.
Okay, but here's the thing. I can tell you for a fact, I know I've heard stuff like that from people who are quite rich and affluent. We need to get the population down. They do say that. That's not, Prince Philip is quoted saying, if I could come back, I'd be like, it's not just like casually like, yeah,
right. But I think they were deliberately taking him out of context. They were doing the exact same thing.
That's fine. Bill Gates.
They would get pissed. They're doing the exact same thing that I would get pissed if somebody did to any one of our people. It's like, you can't just cut off a sentence and run with it. And on top of that, that's a small thing compared to the fact that I think they just draw a bunch of conclusions that, again, they don't have any supporting evidence for, other than the fact that they're saying, well, we saw this thing and that means it's this. Well, that's, you can't make causation. You can't.
Correlation.
Can't really do
correlation doesn't make causation, but I am willing to say I do believe their conclusions are pretty much all correct.
Shout out to David, the young Meacock. Also, I love that name's great.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. I'm sure your documentary will be good, though. I support your documentary, but I think a lot of their conclusions are correct. I don't think embalmers and like doctors are just gonna sit there.
Well,
and,
like I still have a ton of stuff I've recorded for the whole Epstein Black Book documentary thing I wanted to do. The problem with that whole thing became that I recorded maybe 8 or 9 of the profiles that I was going to do. My whole goal was just to do an episode for each name on the book. So it lasts like 1,000, plus episodes. The problem is that when you start to do any of the research into the stuff, it's just utterly boring. Like no one wants to listen to it. It's not fun. Because most of the names on there just go to random CEOs of some fucking business, and so really what you end up with is like you'd have to do an episode on like 200 of the names out of the whole list.
Yeah, well,
and even that is like gets kind of tedious where I feel like it's not fun to listen to. So typically if I don't feel like I'd like listening to it, it's not something
I agree. The unfortunate thing about the truth community is a lot of people want the cool, hip, like sexy, like June, and then you come in and
you can get that, and it's easy. They just need to hire people that know how to do it instead of being retarded about it.
So like Edward Snowden said, if you had to go through CIA,
just don't be retarded. That's it.
It's an easy solution. It's the final solution to this problem, really.
Oh, okay, yay. But that's my thing is I think they said in an interview that died some we edit it to make it kind of like attractive as opposed to here's my PowerPoint chart. Boy, isn't this bad, guys? All right, slide 2. It's like, okay, click.
The cut editing and music and stuff wasn't really my problem. The biggest issue with it is like the production decisions that were made along the way.
Okay,
like,
fine.
The guy who produced that documentary had to sit there and decide how they were going to edit it and how the final cut was going to look. And they looked at that. So he's
definitely
and decided,
not a filmmaker.
Yeah, that would be my guess is if they did get a professional to do this, they're not somebody who's been doing it very long, because I know people in this state who have made amateur documentaries on COVID better than that. So it just doesn't make sense to me. And the amount of money that I've heard has been used to produce that documentary doesn't make sense to me if that's your final product, because the majority of that documentary was
if you've ever been
cheap.
Involved in making film, you know that you can spend an ass load of money and produce a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not hard.
All right. Well, I think what we are going to do is I'm going to switch things up. Instead of starting with the Twitter files, I'm going to start with the Vogler article, and we're going to go through some of that. I posted this on Facebook and Twitter, but I know it's long, and so a lot of people won't read through it. But this is kind of a general discussion that was posted 4 days ago by Modern Diplomacy. It says Joe Vogler and the Alaskan Independence Party, the last secession attempt in the United States. I do hate the fact that people use this photo of Vogler all the time on articles and stuff, and I've posted it, but they never grab the like full version of it. They always use the cropped out version, which is like actually not from the article originally. It's from this other thing, and it looks like shit compared to the original. But the
you should
political
do a Photoshop edit, like give them eyes, like the glowing eyes and stuff.
Yeah, well, I there's a certain bit of like, okay, so I was gonna make a Joe Vogler Twitter account, like, and just only post his quotes in response to people, because there's so many of them that are fucking perfect for that. But there is a level of like, the only reason I haven't done it is a respect thing. I'm like, I like this guy's life, and like, like I don't really want to like fuck with his kind of like, name.
I'll make one too. I'll do a Lysander Spooner Twitter. Be like, hey,
I think there's already a Lysander Spooner.
Oh, there is?
I'm pretty sure I've seen a
Lysander
Spooner.
Yo, what's up, guys? Fuck Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, so actually, you know what I'm gonna do here? We're gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. Actually,
please don't. You throw up. I throw
Wait,
up.
Isn't that impersonation? Isn't Musk gonna ban me if I do that?
No, Joe. So I don't think so, because he's passed away. So I think the way that Musk explained it was, if the person's deceased, then there's no real way for somebody to think it's actually that person. Right?
There is one.
So it would. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I was gonna say, I'm almost positive there's a Lysander Spooner. I was gonna bring up this other thing first. I am gonna go grab a lighter so that I can take a hit of dabs before I have to read this. You guys want to vamp for a second and talk about something random?
Yeah.
You come up.
People in China are overthrowing the CCP. Woo! Anarchy. Maybe. Actually, I don't know what to believe there. I see some things that they're cracking down. I see some things that civilians are winning. It's kind of hard because there's censorship, so you don't know.
You know, I just don't know what is China propaganda. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly the CCP wants everyone to see them. I could imagine them trying to keep everyone just on their toes, you know, wondering.
Do we want to also talk about Yay on Alex Jones? Did we talk about that?
Or Yay on censored.tv?
Yeah, I heard he went on Gavin McInnes' show too. He's been really making the rounds.
Ye was on Gavin's show. I have to watch it.
Yeah,
apparently it was a train wreck because it was an intervention. It was Gavin's intervention of Kanye. Because I've been watching a Gavin show and he's been reacting to the Ye stuff and talking about how it's just retarded. Like he's like, you're kind of screwing yourself here, dude. It's pretty bad again when Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes are like somewhat the voice of reason in the situation. That I think is scary. It's definitely probably not where you want to be.
I think Alex Jones is reasonable. Why?
I would think like if Milo wants to hook up and like work on a business thing with me, I'm probably on the wrong track in life.
What about Nick?
Milo wants to hook up, I'd be worried about getting monkeypox.
What about your boy Nick? What about Mr. Nick Fuentes?
Fuentes.
That seems like a nice kid.
He's America first, man.
He is the thing that he hates. That's the best way I can explain it.
I don't know what Nick Fuentes believes, to be honest. I hear weird.
I think he doesn't know what he believes. He's exactly like Milo. These people are transformers. They will just believe whatever pays them the most. They're grifters.
See, I kind of think Nick is actually just like not out of his element, but
he's smart.
He's treading in deep water that he
Politics is his element, and being a personality is his element. But he doesn't know how to do both those things at the same time without completely fucking himself and the people around him. He's betrayed every major friend. Yeah, he's betrayed every
personality.
But he's betrayed every quote unquote big friend he's made in the movement. He's fucked over people who've worked with America First directly and indirectly. He's badmouthed every person that's ever tried to help him. You end up with a situation where, sorry, bud, I'm just going to sit back and laugh at you. I mean, you're the cum hunter supreme now. That is how that guy will be known for his entire life. He's a guy who took a black light to a couch to try to discover whether his old roommate was coming. Like, I don't know what you guys... Like, those are not the people I'm taking seriously on the political stage, and he did that to himself.
True.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't know if we want to talk about... I don't have much to say about this. They called it for Warnock in Georgia, it looks like. Not that it really matters.
Is Warnock the Democrat or Republican? I know nothing.
Democrat. They're running against Herschel Walker. Because I remember someone made like Walker Fetterman because like, you know, they say a bunch of like, he's like, you know, I was hanging out, the werewolf, and Fetterman can't really talk. So,
well, maybe the Republicans will be smart and sit at the table with the Libertarians next election cycle, because that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for a Libertarian fucking them. And that's what I think needs to be done.
Chase Oliver, yeah. Chase Oliver is pretty cool.
Even if I don't like Chase's like background style of libertarianism, which I absolutely don't, and I don't like his take on the whole trans LGBTQ gay thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
I think it's stupid. And I think anybody who would take their kids to one of these parades, where I've personally seen what happens at them, even in my state.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it.
If you take your kid to that, I think you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, that's child abuse.
And I think you're a shitty person. I'll say that. And
I agree.
Pretty much said that. So that's my take on the guy. I think what he did was smart. I think it should force the Republicans to come to the table. Doesn't mean I have to like the guy personally.
I don't know. To be fair, there's some.
But I think that's the beauty of us, is if this was a Republican or a Democrat, they wouldn't get that same treatment.
And I get that. Here's the thing, and I don't know Chase Oliver is everything. I know some people who were in the former Libertarian Party did like him, so I assume he probably has some more left-wing leanings. That being said, I like how he forced a runoff, because now it's like, look, you have to acknowledge us. We're going to do some stuff here. We're not just playing around. And even if it's just something small, something getting in the way, I like that. I disagree highly with Owen Schroyer that, it was good Mark Victor, got out. I want to I guess I still like causing trouble.
I think that's important, especially if you want to keep brand recognition within the media. You have to keep causing trouble.
Like, these libertarians keep ruining races.
That's why what fucking New Hampshire does is so smart. And I think everybody bitching about it is stupid, because it's like, guys, they're doing the thing, and they're doing it not from a national account. So you guys can't take the direct heat from this. I don't understand how this isn't a win-win for everybody.
And I just want to wish Meghan McCain happy holidays, whatever she celebrates. And John McCain, happy holidays. Happy holidays, everyone.
May you rot in hell.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and get into this. Modern Diplomacy put out this. This was Nikita Triandafylidis. That's a really hard name it's Greek, I think, so it's really hard to pronounce. I'm not going to do it justice. Joe Vogler and the Alaskan Independence Party, the last secession attempt in the United States. The political system in the U.S. is characterized by a bipolar system of division between the Democratic and Republican Party. As a result, independent parties are hardly noticed and barely manage to scrap voters in the elections. I lost my train of thought already. I'm too stoned. However, independent parties in the U.S. have been around since the creation of the nation, and some of their leaders have gone as far as pursuing to secede from the federal government to the U.S. Joe Vogler was an Alaskan politician that railed a major nationalistic movement in Alaska for the state to secede from the U.S. Although his actions did not bear any fruits, his creation of the Alaska Independence Party opened the door to interesting questions and political theories. It is possible for an independent party to hold major power in the U.S., and how much influence do the independent parties have in one of the most politically divided countries in the world? Joe Vogler, an Alaska nationalist from Kansas. Joe Vogler was born on April 24th, 1913 in Kansas, United States. In 1942, he moved to Alaska, where he worked as a civilian employee of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Fairbanks. That's the, I don't know what the base would have been at the time up there. I think it would have, I'm not even going to say, because I'm thinking of Greeley and a bunch of other places up there at the time that would have been running. Although he graduated with a law degree from the University of Kansas, his move to Alaska demonstrated his humble beginnings and love for a more traditional lifestyle away from the metropolises of America. Besides working construction and military bases, Vogler was involved in the development of real estate and mining in Alaska. Described by his admirers as a stand-up, no-nonsense man, Vogler started his early nationalist views of an independent Alaska in the early 1970s, where he frequently wrote letters to editors in newspapers calling for Alaska to secede from the federal government of the U.S. In 1973, he founded the Alaskans for Independence organization to label his petition drive to secede from America in 1984. He founded the Alaska Independence Party, AIP, which he led for almost a decade until his sudden disappearance and death in 1993. So I'll stop here and say, so this is going over his general kind of upbringing, where he comes from. What I'm going to be writing about is hopefully I can fill in some of the blanks of his early life there that is not really public to an extent. I have some connections that I'm hoping can help with that. As well as a lot of just bringing documents and photographs and videos of him together that have just not really seen the light of day. Most of this stuff
I would love
lives
to
on.
see some of that.
Most of this stuff lives on DVDs that were burned and sold at events in the late 90s and 90s and late 80s.
So for this documentary, where's it going to? Are you going to put it like on Rumble and YouTube and everything? And then are you going to have commentary from like some people who knew and some people who are still part of the party?
So yeah, there's a lot of people over here that are still part of the AIP that were friends of him, knew him. There's a lot of people that I know just around my state that were affected by him or saw what he did. So I'd like to have little blurbs, interviews with them, even if it's just 30, 40 seconds a person, just to throw in between kind of margin breaks.
What happens if your documentary reignites the party and they do it? Do you think it might?
It's great. I mean, I'd love the cause that he was calling for secession. They call it that. They say he was calling for secession. That isn't necessarily true. What he was actually calling for was a vote on secession. See, what happened is all of the colonies were given weird hosh-posh of choices when they became a part of the Union, and in particular, Alaska and Hawaii got completely shafted. We didn't have the opportunity to become an independent nation at any point. They didn't give us the ability to have trade with the rest of the United States. They literally told us, you either become part of the Union or we're going to basically slowly take you over anyway.
Yeah, well, my biggest argument to people was in that, Robert, if I really like that one because a lot of people always bring, well, Green, wouldn't the warlords take over? Because you hear that from everybody else. Oh, warlord, just like there's warlords sitting around in America who want to take over. I guess they think every place is Somalia, which Somalia even improved, but that's besides the point. But Robert Murphy or whoever's narrating that says in America,
I can give you a few reasons why this isn't Somalia.
Yeah. even though they had the best governance model on the planet in a large scale, I would say Chiron's the best in a local scale. But in the inception of the U.S., they never gave the option of, hey, free market anarchy or anything else. They said Articles of Confederation or the Constitution. And that's kind of shit, because what if you don't want either of those and you didn't sign either of those and you didn't agree to either of those? What do you do?
Right. Okay.
Spooner made that argument.
So the Alaskan Independence Party, libertarian conservatism at its finest. So this is the one portion where I would probably have a slight disagreement. I think the Mises Caucus is a better representation of this. But I'll get into exactly why. Probably not in the documentary or book, but I'll probably do some supplemental stuff after the fact that'll go into that. But the Alaska Independence Party, AIP, gained momentum in the early 1980s when Joe Vogler founded the party with a clear focus on the independence of Alaska from the United States. The ideology of the party is a mix of Alaska nationalism and libertarian conservatism. It is easy to see where Alaska nationalism comes from and why it is advocated. As one of the largest states in the U.S., Alaska, it's the largest state in the U.S., you fucking cocksucker, has immense mineral and oil wealth. It has the most oil wealth. With the oil and gas industry being the largest component in the state, almost 85% of the state budget is supplied by oil revenues. Not to mention that the U.S. that Alaska has an important geological position, being isolated from the continental U.S. and sharing a maritime border with the Russian Federation. The position of Alaska on the world map is a very strategic one, and a major advantage in trading, fishing, and mining. Mary Francis, a writer from South Central Alaska and a registered member of AIP, shares the same views as many Alaskans who advocate for the independence of their state. In her words, as posted in the Anchorage Daily News, she describes how beneficial would be the actual secession of Alaska for the people that live there, who many times feel abandoned by the federal government due to their small population as the U.S. engages in trade wars. An independent Alaska would make international trade agreements on our terms. Our geographic position as the top of the Pacific grants us access to Asian and North American markets as an Arctic shipping lanes open in the decades to come. European markets, currently we are delegated to the position of a dejected American outpost. Yet all air cargo being transported between the United States and Asia flows through Ted Stevens International Airport. Alaska's economic potential is much greater than what the U.S. allows. Anchorage Daily News, Mary Frances. The last sentence by Mary Frances reveals the nature of the U.S. government taking full advantage of the position and natural resources of Alaska, while at the same time disregarding the voices of Alaskan population simply because of their low population compared to the other 49 states of America. When people of a particular geographical area feel isolated from their government in a metaphorical and literal sense, and find unity under the same cause, isn't that a classic recipe for a nationalistic independence movement? So this is discussing kind of the way most Alaskans feel about this state, is that the rest of the U.S. views Alaska as a warehouse of minerals and a place for them to vacation. And so you end up with a situation where all of those minerals and resources are locked off. 60% or so, or over 60% of the state is owned by the federal government. And this was really what Joe Vogler was opposing back in the day. His entire political career starts with the federal government fucking with his mining operation. They landed a helicopter on top of his cat and told him that he couldn't drive it to his mine, and he went to court against them. That was the beginning of all of it for him regarding the entire thing, and that was because the federal government began coming in around that same time and taking all these lands under these national park laws and saying, well, we're just going to take this, and these lands are ours now, and deal with it, which for a place where everybody was used to being able to homestead and collect lands that way and then mine on those lands and take those resources to town to sell, when you have a government coming and eating all the lands around the mines, you end up with a situation where no one can make money. So the whole thing falls apart. Regarding the philosophical ideology of the party, we can see many similarities to other political ideologies in the U.S., like the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party. The primary ideology is based on traditional American values such as the right to bear arms, privatization away from the sphere of public sectors, and of course, limited government interference. These particular American values are mixed with the libertarian conservative philosophy that advocates, among many things, the maximum economic liberty for the people, combined with the minimum government regulation of economic and social life, although on many occasions this political and social philosophy is mirroring classical liberalism that distinguishes it is the focus on American values and a sense of morality and duty toward the idea of free and independent people from any form of government regulations. So I'm going to skip some of this here and we'll go on. That way we can save some time. We'll get to the other stories here. But okay, this is a sudden disappearance. So Joe Vogler made a couple of unsuccessful bids for public office, with the first one being back in 1974, when he ran for governor of Alaska, only to lose by a large margin to Jay Hammond, who represented the Republican Party. After that, in 1978, he tried to run as a lieutenant governor alongside Don Wright, only to lose again to Jay Hammond. He made two last attempts to run as governor in 82 and 86, but his efforts did not result in a positive outcome, although none of his efforts resulted. But his efforts did not result in a positive outcome. Although none of his efforts resulted in a victory, Vogler still had quite a few thousand supporters that railed behind his nationalistic cause. His libertarian rhetoric appealed to many Alaskans that felt that indeed they are being exploited and overlooked by the U.S. government. He was extremely un-American in a political sense, and a harsh critic of all government's institutions that he felt had no place in the state that he envisioned. Sorry, I'm trying to. On May 30th, 1993, Joe Vogler suddenly disappeared, just a couple weeks before he addressed the United Nations on the issue of Alaskan independence. A close friend called the authorities after not hearing from him in a couple days. An investigation took place to find him. After a couple months and unsuccessful attempts to find Vogler, a man called the authorities, informing them that a suspicious truck with a bullet hole in it at the back was seen at Fairbanks at the same time that Vogler disappeared. The man driving the truck was identified and taken into custody. Manfred West immediately confessed to the murder of Joe Vogler. He claimed that Vogler wanted to buy plastic explosives from him, and when the deal went wrong, he shot Vogler and buried him. After almost a year, an anonymous tip revealed the location of Vogler's body. He was buried in a shallow grave outside Fairbanks. West was convicted of 80 years of prison time and currently serves his time at the Palmer Correctional Facility in Sutton, Alaska. Joe Vogler's sudden disappearance and murder did not sit well with a lot of people affiliated with AIP, who felt his death was an execution and that Manfred West was hired to do the job. These speculations seem to fit the narrative that Vogler's death was not just a deal that went wrong. It is important to mention that Vogler managed to gain the support of Iran to sponsor his speech at the UN. At that time, relations between the two states had deteriorated right after the Persian Gulf War, when Iran was accused of trying to replace Iraq as the most dominant power in the Gulf by 1992 under the Bush administration. Congress had passed the Iran-Iraq Non-Proliferation Act, sanctioning specific materials that could be used for the development of advanced weaponry. As a result, Iran's support for Joe Vogler would have been an embarrassment for the U.S. if he managed to speak at the podium at the UN. In addition, Vogler throughout his political career had made a lot of enemies, and powerful people back in Washington, D.C. did not see his intentions as just an effort to secede from the U.S. By the time his political career started, the Cold War was still at its peak, and the competition with the Soviet Union was the most serious matter that affected the whole globe. Vogler was accused by many of being a socialist, and people in D.C. were worried that his views would find support back in Moscow, who would seek to find an opportunity to have closer relations with an independent Alaska. We might never find the truth about Vogler's death and the people responsible for it, but we only speculate that powerful people in the political arena in the U.S. would not have been happy if Vogler was allowed to speak at the United Nations. So I will go ahead and stop it here, but it does go into the fact that one of the things that pissed off a lot of people was the fact that when Vogler lost, they were successful in getting somebody in office, which was Hinkle. He became governor of the state, and he won that under the AIP banner. He changed from a Republican to an AIP member and won, which makes Hinkle the most recent, I believe, third-party governor. Technically speaking, would actually be him, because that was in like the 90s or 80s, something like that.
So what's the leading theories about his disappearance?
So the thing he doesn't mention in this article is how they arrested Manfred West. Manfred West didn't just turn himself into the police. He actually tried to burn his house down with him still in it. Manfred West was a supposed drifter, homeless guy is who they position him as. But he flew into the state the day before kind of starting trouble from, I think, Idaho is where he came from. And his claim is that he just was broke and wandering around looking for stuff and happened upon his cabin, and then that was it. And then he claimed to the cops another story of the whole C4 thing. So he's given the cops multiple different versions of the story. He tried to recant his confession, which he claimed was given under duress. He's still in prison today. I think he's in his late 60s, early 70s at this point. So I've thought about maybe trying to send him a couple letters and go over there and interviewing him for the thing I'm making. But there's some interview footage out there that City Confidential got for their documentary they did back in '99 that I should be able to kind of repurpose to an extent. So I don't really feel like I need to get that story over again because, frankly, I don't really want to talk to the guy. Like, even if I could go interview him,
well, I mean, how much could you actually get out of him? It doesn't.
Yeah,
sound...
he's just gonna say the same shit that he said in every other interview. He's
something
not gonna...
completely new that's just off the wall.
Yeah, and then you have to go, well, I can't believe anything you fucking tell me, so I don't know whether this is true unless I can find some kind of independent evidence around it. That becomes a mess. But he's a, you know, what I think happened realistically is there's virtually no physical evidence in the case. And another big problem that I have with it is that, you know, there was no trial. Manfred West pled no contest and then tried to go back on that later. So there was never any actual trial. So no real in-depth cases were ever presented. Well, part of that is the fact that, and some pretty big lieutenant governors and people in the state have said this on interviews, but there was no physical evidence. The idea that Manfred West extracted Joe Vogler from his home without anything being there is just absurd. And so what you end up with is either Manfred West was not the primary person doing this, and there was multiple people there, which would explain why there wasn't any physical evidence and explain why it was so clean in a sense. Because none of this would have ever... I mean, they would have never found the body. That's the reality. If Manfred West hadn't supposedly... Oh, so this is the other thing. Manfred West didn't tell them where the body was. Manfred West supposedly told a cellmate where the body was, and the cellmate told the police.
So did they ever actually recover his body?
Oh, they recovered his body. But my point is Manfred West, the guy who supposedly did the killing, isn't the one who actually told the cops where the body was. A cellmate that isn't even really named in any of these documents supposedly told the cops at the prison that this is where the body's at. He told me this. But there's no real evidence of that taking place. It's just as possible the cops knew where the body was because they had been looking at Manfred West the whole time, or even was watching him the night when he did the murder, and then simply went and cleaned it up. The other thing was one of the troopers connected to the case that handled all the evidence later got arrested for tampering with evidence. And, you know, that's a whole shit show, but he was found to be being paid off and a bunch of other bullshit. So I think
he was paid off by a Fed, Manfred.
I think the federal government had the most benefit of getting rid of Vogler because he was a few days away from talking at the UN. And I also think that the oil companies had a big benefit of getting rid of him because they also wouldn't have wanted that speech to happen. They were getting huge payoffs by the government and they were getting supported by the Fed. So they're in a position where they have to kind of hate him. And he did go after a lot of those guys too in his past. He didn't like the way the oil companies treated Alaskans in a lot of places. And I personally agree with him in those cases. But the fact is you end up with a situation where it's either that this guy was knocked off by multiple people who were either in part or whole paid off by a group, whether that's oil companies or some CIA or FBI agents, is beyond me. But I lean more towards government involvement in this case, specifically because a lot of it comes down to the police botching things and the police being involved in this. there's another disappearance in this state, Nick Begich, who I've talked about before, and he's a similar situation where, yeah, I think the government either knew that was going to happen or was directly involved. He was on a plane with Hale Boggs, guy who was involved with the Kennedy and Martin Luther King investigation stuff, where they were trying to find out if they were linked. And then he got on a plane with him. He was the governor of the state at the time, and ended up, plane disappeared. No wreckage ever found. No anything ever recovered. And his wife then married some dude who was arrested for building bombs and shit like that. It is a wild story, but it comes down to, like, dudes were offed. You'll never know who really did it, but they were offed. In Vogler's case, I think there's much more evidence pointing towards the fact that I think feds paid some people off and just had the guy killed, or feds just went to the oil companies and did the same, or gave them the green light.
Jeez, everybody, yeah, it was Manfred.
And I think Manfred West was a gigantic fucking patsy. I mean,
hey man, Manfred West was acting. Manfred West was acting on his own, and so was Oswald. There's no chance that the CIA orchestrated any hits. And there's no chance that Bill Gates believes in depopulation is controlled by reptilian entities from negative dimensions in the astral plane.
And the mob did not kill Jimmy Hoffa.
No, they didn't. And if you get some Shunganite, you get a nice sticker, you can block the EMF things and save yourself from oxidation.
So, out of everybody here, who has actually looked at the Twitter files? Like, read through the...
I haven't read through the second dump. I was watching other people's coverage today, though.
Okay.
Watching Jeremy, the court.
Basically, what I got from it is this. Twitter's interfered in elections, especially like Vijaya Gotti. It's not everybody who knew this. Ro Khanna even had concerns like, why are we censoring?
She's fucked. Vagina name is she's fucked. She's screwed because her name is all over that shit. I think she knew she was fucked early on. Vajayjay, that was the name.
Now, the one part from me is people are like shocked. They're like, Twitter removed content at the behest of Democrats and Republicans. Let's not forget that. I'm sure
they're gonna do the same thing now. I just like, at the same time, I'm like, at least we know it happened. Yeah. And Benzo Barbie, nothing will happen. Yeah, nothing's going to happen here, guys. Sorry. The reality is the Twitter files mean nothing because at the end of the day, the media is controlled by a monolithic structure, and unless they decide something happens because of it, nothing will take place of it. Like, Elon Musk buying Twitter doesn't solve the problem of Twitter.
No.
It only solves the bias of Twitter, right? But the problem of Twitter is still that, why the fuck are we doing all of our politics on an app? Like, that's still the problem of Twitter. Like, let's not get it twisted. Like,
yeah, the idea of a digital public square
doesn't really work.
No, it's
play
terrible.
Some fucking
too.
Cards and get together. Suck it up. Don't be pussies.
Yeah.
Well, why not? Like, let's have like an actual public square.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a big amphitheater or
fucking straight up
shit.
Hear ye shit. Like, I want soapboxes on every corner. I don't give a shit. But this stuff, like, and Twitter can exist and all these things can exist. But maybe it needs to be a rule that, like, politicians just start on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a better idea. There's this
that'd be pretty based. Like, the politicians would have to just go, like, yeah, you go, well, it pushes them through the media. It's like, no, they can go on YouTube.
Yeah.
They can go on Twitch. They can talk all they want. If it's live and people can react to it live and talk back and forth, no more Twitter. Because it just makes it toxic. You just end up with this fuck bubble of fucking politics. Like, this incestuous shit show.
There's an even better idea. There's two amazing countries. One's in sub-Saharan Africa and one's right down here. And if you get rid of the federal government, all the state governments, and just have local government.
Germany? You didn't say the other country.
Well, it's Somalia and Mexico. And she
Elon is still a human and has human biases, like with Alex Jones and the kid thing. Yeah.
Elon's not human, man. He's Neuralink. He's putting in chips in people's heads.
It is officially a private company now. No one gets to fucking complain. Whatever Alex Jones does on his own time and Elon Musk does on his own time is up to Elon Musk now, because it's just his company. And anybody who doesn't like it is just going to have to get off Twitter and figure out how to live. I think there's a lot of people who have a problem doing that. And I think that's a big issue with Twitter in general. I think we've seen that, Twitter is going to play a big role in 2024, just like it did in 2016. I think that's pretty clear at this point, because you have Trump's account back on there, and eventually he's going to start using it again. And eventually the left is going to go crazy over it. And if the left is smart, they do a media blackout on Trump. They don't talk about him. But we all know the media wants money. And so the media isn't going to be smart. They're going to talk about him. And it's going to make him split the Republican Party, like I've talked about before, because you have too many groups within the Republican base that like too many candidates more than him. And so you're going to end up with a situation where when 2024 voting season comes around, the Democrats are going to end up winning because not enough fucking Republicans are going to go vote for whatever candidate gets nominated, because they're going to get dejected by the other Republican that they wanted not getting in. And I think however the Republicans react to that, I don't think there's really a thing they can do to fix any of it. I've got a YouTube chat here. Hey, fellas, why are we still dealing with this outdated two-party system? Well, because of everything I just talked about. Because the media is a monolith, and the government likes there being two simple parties, so they can make people think that they're arguing when they're really not.
Okay. Well,
most of the Republicans and Democrats agree with each other behind closed doors.
They do. It is a circus. I think the only solution really is decentralization, nullifying at the local level. There is no other solution.
Or helicopters.
Yeah. And letting people know about, honestly, it comes down to having people socially cooperate, fixing the money, and honestly just decentralizing till you get to your city council. Then we can figure it out from there. And then coalition building with people who don't agree with capitalism but still are anarchists. And that's why it is important, I think, to talk to ANCOMs and syndicalists and things like that.
Yeah.
I
think
was
ANCOMs
talking
are
retarded.
Man,
I'm still going to stand
they're
on that.
good people. Bakunin was a cool dude, man. Don't be hate.
I was talking to Reed Coverdale about this earlier. The more power the neighborhood has, the less power the federal government has. And if we can't even protect our own like tiny villages, we expect to go up against this, I don't even know what you would call it, but we expect to go up against this all controlling like thing that just will not stop. So it has to start in our neighborhoods. Well, actually, it has to start with ourselves, right? Go back to the basic Jordan Peterson and clean up your room.
Clean up your room and take benzos. I'm pretty sure that was the message. I think that was clean up your room, do drugs. I think that was about that was the Jordan Peterson.
And fuck you if you don't like it.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
You know what though? I'm tired of Peterson. I do not.
So I was tired of Peterson like 2.5-3 years ago. The fact is like when he and I talked about this in a clubhouse once and got in a vicious argument. It was hilarious. This
oh my
was
god,
like
you told me to clean his room. Here's one problem.
Well, no, it's just the guy like you cannot go from telling everybody how to live their lives and to be constructive in their households and all this hooey shit that he, did, which works, by the way. I'm not taking anything away from it, but when the fucking messenger for that system is a guy who's willing to get hooked on prescription drugs because some guy in a lab coat said, yeah, these definitely won't fuck you, is I can't support that anymore. Like you kind of lost all your principle to me.
How do I sound this without sounding?
It'd be like if Ron Paul, like, woke up tomorrow and made a YouTube video where he's just sitting in front of the camera being like, all right, here's what we got to do. Bomb them. Just straight in. Just send them all. Just nuke the fields. Napalm everywhere. Like,
grow the Fed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we need to print more money. Like, you know.
I get what you mean. I take an easier approach with Peterson. I definitely acknowledge the fact that it's interesting, you know, taking life advice from somebody who obviously hasn't cleaned up their own room.
Yeah.
But
you ever hear the guy on Rogan? He's a libertarian, I think. He's done stuff with Cato. He's got like black guy with big long dreads. He's a professor.
Yes.
Yeah, he talks about ending drug wars, things like that.
Yeah, he's great on the drug war, but he openly talks about the fact that he does heroin and things like that in his home. Right.
So
I'm never going to take life advice from that guy.
No.
That dude is like...
Peterson has earned a certain amount within his own lanes. Like you said, you would never take away from what, you know, what he
before
has
that
done.
point.
Yeah. I mean, beyond the second book wasn't quite as enthralling as the first.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't a fan of it.
Here's my
I have like a copy I read when I went to Florida, and it was good, but it wasn't as good as the first.
However, Maps of Meaning is intense.
I've heard it's intense, but here's my issue with Peterson. Well, I have a few issues. One is this. Sometimes he can't answer a simple question. What's your favorite color? Green, blue. He's like, well, what do you mean by favorite? And what do you mean by color? See, there's a pseudo structure in Jung's hierarchy that if you walk upside down and calculate the parameters of the stars, then you can figure out that maybe in a pseudo intellectual world that and color is representative of the more broader, higher. Sometimes it just becomes like word salad. Like, dude, you could say you like green. Like, not everything has to be.
That Peterson, more so than just about anybody in the intellectual space, fervored a bit of hero worship, and instead of leaning away from that, he leaned into it heavy by going on people's shows and saying he is the voice for all these people, and you know, he very much so made himself into that character, and then at the same time was actively lying to everybody about who he was and what his actual character was, then continued to lie about it, got caught, and made excuses about it. Said, oh, I was in an emotional state and all this stuff was going on. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry. You're an intellectual. You have a high IQ. You've talked about your personality openly. We all know who you are. So we all know you should be capable of stopping yourself from doing this. And you weren't, because you didn't clean your room and you didn't do the things that you claim to profess to follow.
See, I think him signing with Daily Wire was a way bigger.
Oh yeah, that's fucking
that was.
But that's because
that destroyed my trust in him.
He have
over the
Netanyahu? Here's my
he had a Netanyahu interview.
And that's when I lost. I'm just like, I'm done with this dude, because here's the issue.
Well, that's out of his lane though. He has no business being there. You know.
Yeah, like, why are you talking? And here's my problem. He does have some Muslims on. I listened to. He did have some Muslim guests, and that's good. But my problem is, all of a sudden, he started taking this really crazy, which is funny, because I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate either. Andrew Tate's taking a positive stance on Islam, and Jordan Peterson's kind of like saying, like, why do you hate everybody?
Can I tell you the difference, though? Andrew Tate is open about who he is. Like, no one who watches, like, I've watched a lot of Andrew Tate. No one who watches Andrew Tate doesn't understand who Andrew Tate is. I've watched his reality show days when he was out of character and just forming his kind of way he talks and his mannerisms. You can see who he's become. He's very open about who he is. He is a bit of a character.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of him either.
That is what it is. The fact is like, I'll say this. I think
to me.
It is a copy almost of what a lot of Dick Masterson and other people have been saying for quite some time. But but Tate is flawed. Like his the way he addresses the issues he's trying to address, the way he goes about it is
and
it doesn't
here's
actually
the other
say
aspect.
anything.
Here's
He's
the
just
other
making
aspect
loud
of that
noises.
too, is expecting these people to not have their own faults. You know,
I don't trust men who don't like Andrew Tate.
Well, there's
I think Andrew Tate is right about what a lot of the things he's saying is. The problem is the way he goes about saying
he's still
is worse than somebody like
here's the hard part I have with this. The alpha male, here's my issue with society currently. There are so many neoliberals and leftists that say, oh, being a man's, like James Cameron, oh, testosterone's toxic. This is toxic. There's so much crap in our environment, like plastic bottles and phthalates and things and stuff in the water that Alex Jones is right about. And there's so many things to mess up the endocrine system. So, and then there's people telling you, don't be a dude, don't be aggressive, don't be mad. But more so, don't have principles on anything. I don't care if you're necessarily a bodybuilder. I'm not like Hercules, but I can say this. The hard part is then men are like, ooh, this guy's kind of cool. He says he likes hot chicks. He says like this. He like fine. And some of what he says is good. But here's the problem. People have swing from like one end extreme, like don't be happy to be a guy, to be like, oh, I'm going to be a super bro. How about you like pull up The Art of Manliness, check out Atticus Finch. That's a real dude who just stood on principle, even though he didn't know.
Like my position, my personal position is that I've removed myself a long time ago from any dating pool. I don't think it's smart at this point. I think it fucking clouds people's judgment. I think it fucks up the way people think when they're younger. I think it generally leads to people who are unprepared to lead a life. They tie themselves to another individual at a young age. They get trapped in these relationships that fucks them up. So I am somebody who would be technically, if you ask anybody else in family or around town or anything, they'll say, well, he's asexual or whatever, right? In the sense that, but that's not really what I am. What I am is I don't think there's value in somebody in my position having a relationship. I don't see it. There's no value in it. And the problem I see happening is that what Andrew Tate gets right is that he assesses relationships and men and women with value, the same way you do in a marketplace, just like we understand within economics. I think that is very smart. I know it seems chauvinistic and it makes people turned off by what he's saying, and some people don't like it. But the reality is he's talking in the way that everybody thinks about a relationship. No one wants to say it, but that is how, like, when women are thinking about dating somebody, and we have a chick in the chat, she can tell you, are you thinking about, and if you're thinking about a long-term relationship, you're not thinking about that person's necessarily in the moment looks and the way that they are addressing your problems as much so as you're looking at long-term what they're bringing to the relationship, the value that they have, that they are bringing to the table. So this could be job, attractiveness, the way they carry themselves and act.
It's the sexual market value.
Exactly. And that is completely removed from the feminist ideology. They do not use it at all.
Yeah, well,
it's feminism
why it fails. Is demonic.
And realistically, it's why feminism is doomed to always fail in every one of these movements it brings forward, is because you can't move forward with any feminist ideas without putting a value to things, right? It's almost like Mises's argument against socialism is also pertains to the market of relationships in a sense. That's the most autistic thing I've ever said, but it is true to a sense.
No, it's not. It's correct. I mean, forget if it's crazy.
Kevin Samuels does a much better job to me of putting forward those ideas than much of what Tate does. Kevin Samuels was much better at it. He just passed away.
Yeah. Also, what I want to see is like a Marcus Aurelius influencer. I don't necessarily like these pseudo, because my dad's a professor, so I had a different thing.
The problem with marriages is divorce.
Yes, that's true. And licensing. But the issue I have is there's a lot of
fucking
people like Peterson who are career academics. And there's a lot of people like Tate, and I still like Liver King. I'm not going to juice it. But there's a lot of people who are just like jacked in the gym. What we actually need, what actually would be good for young men.
There's the chick in the chat's take.
I agree 100%.
I'm trying to get Pinzo Barbie on the show, but
my thing is, I'm looking for more of someone who's not a career academic, not necessarily like an MMA fighter or someone who just lifts weights, but someone who has balanced the two, like a jacked person who does understand the
like a nice Jack Murphy.
Yeah. No.
Great influence.
Kareem's got just a giant. We're gonna come on the next episode. Kareem's just got a poster on the back wall, big beard.
Yeah, about 19-year-olds say.
Start talking about how your wife went out with Matt last night.
What's funny is Tim had him on for so long. He's like, "This is my buddy Jack Murphy."
I still follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, I do too. I don't hate him, but it comes down.
I don't hate him, but it did take a lot to not jump in that dog pile when everyone was going after him. But I was like, no, we'll save that for another day.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's like you fucking end up with this whole like again, like I talk about the whole feminism argument in comparison with the whole Tate thing, and it's like Tate got banned for nothing. He got nuked for like absolute bullshit. Like, and if you look into like everybody brings up this whole like, well, he's sex crimes and all this stuff that it's like when you actually look into that stuff, it's non-existent. It's like basically he paid some companies who do like cam girl stuff where he was paying to facilitate the cam girl part of it. And everybody's like, well, that's a sex trade. It's like, no, that's business.
Whatever.
Well, no, he wasn't involved in like it was a business he was running. Yeah. Basically, I think the extent of it, and this is where I understand it, one of the things he was doing was renting out a bunch of businesses in foreign countries where they would go find all these cam girls and then put them under their banner and have them move into their housing and stuff. Basically, a cam girl pimp, but with like the OnlyFans model. Which is what a lot of these people are doing, by the way. That happens in the U.S. There are tons of houses right now where there's like a manager and like 8-9 women all on OnlyFans, all doing cam content, all working on Pornhub. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's Adam 22, the guy who runs a podcast. That's his whole fucking thing. Is like he has people on the podcast and then records porn afterwards. Like, I mean, he turned that into a business model. Not my thing,
but hey.
Again, it doesn't have to be, but that's where they're making their money. Like, that's how these things are working. So, relationships, sex, all this thing are already in the marketplace. It's just that half the people don't want to admit that they are. And so that's why you're seeing all these statistics get run through with all these, the anti-feminist people who are being like, yeah, the majority of women aren't going to ever be in a long-lasting relationship in a few years. And talking about all those kind of stats, it's because when one side isn't seeing what's happening and the other one is, then eventually they're just not going to mix anymore. And so you're going to end up.
My favorite person about the whole like sexual market value was always the forbidden Stefan Molyneux. I always loved his take on it.
He's great on some of it. I think some of his newer
all
stuff
of it
spins off
except for the IQ stuff. I mean, I still enjoyed it, but it just went a little far for me.
Yeah, I think he did get
the bell curve is one thing, but once you start going past that, it gets real rough.
yeah. Those last couple of interviews he did with some doctor I'd never heard of.
Yeah, that was not.
Other than that, though, all other of his like 3,000-4,000 episodes, whatever, are great.
I lost interest once he started doing the Trump thing. I'm like, I'm done with you. I even call him sellout Molyneux as a joke. He had some pretty bad takes on. I don't know. After he went Trumpy, he got like people like Eric Prince. I don't know. He's not actually that great of a thinker, honestly, anymore. I like what he was doing, but he's not like an intellectual.
I think he's somebody who sort of got broke by the internet after a certain point.
Correct.
And
correct.
I think there's
His
a
IQ
lot of those.
yeah.
There's a lot of those guys. Gonzalo Lira. I see everybody pumping that guy out. That guy is a complete fucking sham.
I think Stefan has kind of settled into where like he needs to be naturally, like where he is now. And I think that's a perfect place, like for a philosopher.
Where is he?
I don't. I mean, he's just doing his own free domain radio thing, or he dropped the radio. It's just free domain now. But he's on Telegram, DLive.
I know he was doing a bunch
he has
of
an
DLive
Odyssey
stuff.
account and stuff.
Yeah.
But he still
I've
does
seen
the call-in shows, which
I've
are
seen new
fucking
stuff
phenomenal.
And it's not like horrible. I just don't know how much of that he can ever like get back. Like once you kind of tarnish your name, a lot of those
See, I
people
don't think that even if he could, I don't think that he should, or that anything that he could bring to the table effectively would do well at that sort of level.
Might be better to keep him niche.
Yeah.
I feel like he sold out. It's like a musician. I see him like, you sold out. You sold out. Please leave. Like, I don't want to see you anymore. You're done. You're a sellout. He's a sellout.
The only reason I would disagree with that is just because he literally does everything himself.
That's fine. He's still sold out, though.
Well, I mean,
what would you mean by sell out?
Like, to me, I'm always gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, even if the world's ending tomorrow, I'm still like, and someone's like, don't be an. If you just change from an anarcho-capitalist to a minarchist, you can save the world. I'm like, no. Because I've got so hardcore over the years because people are just like, but Kareem, if you don't vote for, so and so, Oz will get in.
Most
this
important election.
Biden will get in. Just like this, Trump will get in. And at a certain point, I'm like, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm sticking to libertarianism. I'm sticking to the ideas because for me, if I don't, what is the point of what I'm doing? If I just pivot, then it doesn't. To me, I wasn't intellectually honest. If I just say, well, I'm going to give up on anarcho-capitalism, then I have a whole, literally, I'm using the ANCAP flag. I'll change that eventually to something like a cool art thing but literally I'm predicated on, here's how you can do self-governance. Here's how it can work. Do I know 100% that it can work and be better in government in every single instance? No. But for the purpose of what I'm doing, for educating the viewers, and for every system I've analyzed, and I've looked at like tons of stuff, not just Democrat, Republican. I looked at syndicalism. I looked at Bakunin's work, which me and Leighton, which we have a differing opinion, look different. ANCOMs are cool dudes. Don't listen to him. And Died Suddenly's good doco. But for me, the only two, at the end of the day, logical things that I've seen, the economic systems are authoritarian communism, the state owns everything, or anarcho-capitalism where the free market does it. I don't like these like pseudo, well, let's socialize this piece and that. If someone wants to do that in their own community, fine, cool, whatever. But like overall, the only moral and consistent philosophy to me is anarcho-capitalism, first created by Rothbard. Mises had the idea initially, and then Rothbard did the actual term. And people like Leeson are bringing it forward. And that's where I'm going, is that I'm going to see this thing out. Like when I got my degree.
I agree with you. I'm on the same wavelength.
So that's what I think the difference principle is.
Yeah.
And I think.
Yeah. Even if someone said Ron DeSantis could save America, you voting for him? No.
Oh no. Personally, I believe.
Even if I know he could, I would not. It's just kind of like I've got so much into where I'm at. I don't like Jeff Bezos at all, but he made a really good quote and said a really good quote. Don't be flexible on your dream or vision, but you can be flexible on the details. And that's how I look at things. If I got really a dream or vision, like, okay, I'm going to do this cryptocurrency exchange, I'm going to do my own news show, I can be flexible on the details. Like, okay, maybe I'll do it here. Maybe I'll use Rumble. Maybe I'll use Odyssey. But I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, anarcho-capitalism doesn't work or minarchism is better. And I'll never do that. I'll never say that. That's my problem with Stefan Molyneux. Just stick to your guns. Either the state's bad or it's not, like he said. Either we do kindergarten morality, it's wrong to hit steal, or not. And even if it's someone who's even say Trump was less bad, he's still part of the state. So I'm not accurate. I'm not like ever going to say, oh, just put somebody in the state because they're a little bit less evil. That doesn't seem to work. And that violates the whole principle of the state's evil if we just kind of say, oh, well, if we just get Republicans in, magically, it'll change. And House Republicans won. What do? America first. Oh, look, Sam Brighton stole a bag. Is that bad? Yes, he violated the NAP. Is he kind of, like a weird dude? Yeah. Do I really care? It's a waste of time. Like
the one pushback I would have with that is, at what point do we draw the line between a like break of your like entire value system versus being able to have a bad take? Because now, let me preface this. I believe that Stefan went all Trumpian with that because of him wanting to grow his YouTube channel and everything. It was completely a business move. But nonetheless, at what point do we draw the line of like people can make mistakes yet still be principled versus they're just a complete political hack and none of their work matters?
Yeah, I think that's all going to be done on the individual basis. So.
Yeah, like I made mistakes before. Like, I could come on and say something like,
I mean, I voted Republican a few times, so
and I voted for Obama a few times back in the day. Where I think it's a hack is that you get solid in your principles. You sat there. This is where I'm at. This is where this is what I'm doing. This is what the cause or the outcome I want to see in the world, which I'd say by Stefan was 50 or whatever, I think he'd have a pretty solid grasp. It's not like he's a college student like, oh, I think this could be good, I think Marxism could, he actually had a solid idea framework of what he wanted to see in the world, which is
he actually released a manifesto not that long ago that he wrote when he was in his early 20s, and it's pretty much spot on where he is now.
Yeah. Art of the argument. My problem is if you start endorsing, if you make your whole YouTube and personality about endorsing a candidate, like, did I interview libertarian candidates? Yes. Would I probably endorse Rick Falkvenia or like Maxime Bernier? Yeah, but I'm not going to sit there and advocate for the legitimacy of the state just because somebody comes along and I think, ooh, I could make money off of this. Oh, if I went all Ron DeSantis on everybody and I kept doing that, and I had Ann Coulter on, and I had Michelle Malkin on, and I had Eric Prince on, and I'm like, yeah, Republicanism, woo! But I'm just doing this temporarily, guys, to get to ANCAP stand. Then you could probably say, I think he's doing it temporarily to get to a little bit of income. Or someone posted something funny with him and Chris Cantwell. It said, anarcho-statist, we'll get rid of the state by advocating for the state. I'm like, okay. To me, actually,
no, that's a fair criticism. I enjoy that.
Yeah, and to me, actually, I could even make a radical statement saying that Biden's a worse president, but because he's so bad, now that people are seeing what the state really, the real face of the state isn't a slick character like Obama or Trump that tells you cool stuff and is funny. They're just sad, angry bureaucrats and intelligence agencies and psychopaths. And now people are seeing what it really is. People are seeing what's really going on because Biden's making it so bad. Now I can actually sit down with someone and be like, look, I know you said anarchy was chaos in the Bush years and Somalia and all this, but now here's what anarchy really is. It means no masters, no rulers. And people are like, oh, no masters, no rulers. Okay. And things are so bad now that, hey, maybe the one silver lining out of this administration being garbage is we can convince people what anarchy really is. And then maybe they'd go find that out and say, well, I don't think it means chaos like everybody had told me. Because everybody in government, Republican, Democrat, mainstream media, oh, look, we destabilized this country, or, we install a new regime. Oh, it failed. It's anarchy here. Look, this is anarchy. Isn't it bad? It's just people killing other people. So that's what I want to impress is like, look.
Oh, God. Benzo's got competition in the chat.
Yeah. Hey. Fine. What the heck is this?
Sex bots.
Yeah, buddy.
Hell yeah.
Let's get it.
So,
awesome.
Well, I think we can kind of close out here. I think this is like an hour.
You know how we can save America? Sound money and make adult work legal, which we can work with the left libertarians on. That'd be awesome day.
We could make a lot of shit legal, although I do kind of enjoy the fact of becoming a shine runner. There's something about that just speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
So
this bot is going wild.
I'm getting rid of them as fast as they can pop.
Yep, that's the time to cut it right there.
All right, take it easy, guys. Peace out.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Go check out Rise to Liberty on YouTube and Spotify and all that.
RiseToLiberty.com/links. I'll see you guys.